understood that Ministry of Defense has come out with the new procurement procedures. There are certain changes which they have brought in. We wanted to understand, the industry's perspective to this voluminous document. That how will this help the domestic industry as such, not only to grow but also to grow intellectually as well. So for this purpose, and especially we also wanted to contribute to make sure that if some roadblocks or some bottlenecks or some misinterpretation is there, that can be ironed out. So that's why Ashwini ji wanted to understand from you all. We are expecting few more guests to join in, so maybe with the due course they will come in. So we will start the discussion, and maybe they can join and give their inputs as and when they come in. So to begin the discussion, may I request Dr. Tyagi. Dr. Tyagi is also now formally part of CIEU. He is the area chair for defense and aerospace segment. Dr. Tyagi, mic is yours. You can start the conversation.
Right. Thank you very much, Anirudh. Good initiative. Compliments to CIEU and Swadeshi Jagran Manch. And glad that Ashwini Mahajan ji is also there. I can also see Suji Samadar who has just chipped in.
Sorry for a little delay.
And also,
thank you.
Also, all the team participants, and most of we are all very good friends. We have been working on different forums for defense and aerospace. Reflections on DAP 2020. The first draft was circulated on 21st March, and the date given was up to 8th of May, wherein industry submitted responses in terms of running into tens of thousands of pages, and lot of reactions came from the industry. Now, after incorporating some of them and not accepting some of them, another draft has come, and on this the comments have been asked by 10th of August. First observation, in my opinion, the time given is very, very small, especially keeping in view that industry will not know really what has been accepted and what has not been accepted. So if you want to have good deliberations and input by the industry, I feel there is a very strong case that this date needs to be extended up to 31st of August. Now, some good things have happened, like when you talk of positive upshots, equipment leasing has been introduced, which is a very long pending demand from the industry and really helps the defense forces if you have a short-term requirement. Then changes in the definition of Indian vendors, another welcome step. Intergovernmental agreements and foreign military sales, the offsets are done away with. Possibly the finalization of the orders can be the period can be shortened by something about 1 year or so. And also the timelines for acquisition process have been reduced, the targets. So this is some of the welcome steps. However, just of course, other participants will have a lot of good contributions to make. I'll just quickly tell 9-10 short points. In this draft, the concept of offset banking has been offset banking means generation and accumulation of offset credits prior to the award of main contract. I think for a continued incentive to the foreign OEMs, this needs to be reintroduced. Then offset applicability in buy and make cases, somewhere it is defined that there should be 30% of indigenous content, but in buy and make too, which I think Sujit will be able to deliberate in more details, the indigenous content given is 50%. So this needs a clarity and uniformity. Then third, from MSME point of view, the difficulty is that offset on components given is 0.5x times. And if we really incentivize the MSMEs, I think the offset weightage on components needs to increase to 1x. Rajendra Bhatia ji, welcome. And also, like when we are talking of Atmanirbhar Bharat,
Thank you, Dr. Saab,
indigenous
and sorry for joining late, Mr. Mahajan.
Yeah, welcome.
Namaskar.
You know, when we are talking of indigenous availability of high-end materials and special alloys, then what is needed is foreign technology and investments. I would suggest that FDI and foreign investment should be allowed a 3x multiplier. Should they choose to invest into the indigenous and material alloys. Fifth point, the DAP mandates that CNC to negotiate life cycle support costing along with the main contract. Now, there are two things. Number one, if you want to calculate the costings and especially the life cycle costings, we need to develop a certain expertise. Second thing, the clarity required will be whether this life cycle support costing will also form a part when we decide the lowest bidder, that is L1 bidder. Number 6, again a very bulky document, 700 pages. The people who will handle this DAP will be posted for 3 years. By the time they develop expertise, possibly they will be on their way out. So the two required, I will advocate it should be reduced to not more than 100 pages. And we create Defense Capability Acquisition Authority. This was one of the recommendations of Dr. Preetham Singh committee also. And also we need to create a cadre of acquisition managers like we create the cadre of Indian defense accounts. And there is a need that we create an institutional memory in acquisition wing where we know what we did 10 years back, 20 years back, 30 years back, and like that. Point 7. Only 2 days back, we have also got a very good, very ambitious, very positive draft of how the defense production and exports will be governed in the country. The target of defense production is 1,75,000 crore worth of production by the year 2025 and exports worth 35,000 crore. I think there is a linkage required among these two documents, the DAP and also the defense production and export policy. 8th point, my one worry and trend which is emerging is that last few years, in fact, especially in aerospace, I can say that there have been almost negligent orders to the Indian industry, very few orders, while under the emerging defense diplomacy, have mostly procured the systems from USA, the France, and Russia. Now, if we remove offsets from the government deals, that means whatever thrust on the export has come because of the offset obligations of foreign OEMs in the past, that goes away. Moreover, so you will also see that over the years, the offset obligation, which started with a limit of 300 crore purchases, has been increasing to 2,000 crore. I feel in long run, this is going to be counterproductive and it will help technology inductions in Indian industry. And my last point, sir, MOD, I think it is a time we restructure MOD. We are talking of Department of Defense production. I think this needs to be converted into Department of Defense manufacturing. Acquisition working in isolation and then DOMW and defense production working in another silo possibly is not in the long-term interest of the country. So I think it is a time when acquisition wing and DDP are merged together and an entity on defense manufacturing emerges. And of course, along with DAP, defense production policy, and export policy, I think some money allocation to the defense is also needed if these instruments have to work upon. Just 2 days back, I was attending a webinar where Air Chief was speaking. Before that, I listened to the Army Chief and also to the Naval Chief. And one underlying short point was that the budget available for capital acquisitions is highly inadequate with all the 3 agencies. So something for that also we have to do in long run in order to make good use of these documents. just to sum up, number one, the date for submitting the comments on the industry needs to be extended to 31st of August so that industry can do really good inputs for this document. With this, I conclude my observations and reflections on this DAP 2020. Thank you very much. Look forward to listen to you.
अनिलेश जी नहीं दिख रहे हैं मेरे को. Is he disconnected? अनिलेश जी का नहीं दिख रहा है.
कौन?
I think he must have got disconnected.
नीलेश जी तो होस्ट है, वो तो डिस्कनेक्ट होने नहीं चाहिए, बट आई थिंक
वो दिखाई नहीं दे रहा है.
वो दिख नहीं रहे. तो मेरे ख्याल से हम रिक्वेस्ट कर सकते हैं पाटिल साहब को.
Yeah,
He
Patil
can
sir,
give his views.
yeah, that would be great. Yeah, good, very
Followed by
I've muted. Yeah.
Mukesh.
Good evening. Good evening.
In the meantime,
Yeah, I had muted. I'm on. Namaskar, Ashwini ji. And let me say that for system integrators, major players, there are lots of positives. There are a lot of negatives with the policy still, but there are lots of positives. I mean, I'll talk on both, the half empty, half full, both. The half empty obviously is, Tyagi just said 700 pages, it's 782 pages. There are a few more new categories added, and I see an absolute amount of overlap between three categories, which actually means only one. If you have buy and make Indian, buy global, nil import, and last but one category of buy global, make in India. They are all, the sides of the same coin. It must be a unidirectional coin, but being seen in three different directions. So that's exactly where that category is. It only creates confusion. So that is one absolute negative, I would say. Second negative is obviously the budgets are not enough, and with the last three financial years of massive amount of foreign OEM orders, there's hardly any money available for indigenous orders being placed. And in a year like COVID, this particular year, one always hears even for small contracts, where's the money? So we don't have to talk of big contracts at all. So truly the one big issue is money. I would say very sizably, having seen the document, the first document when it came in March had enormous amount of positives across the board. Every category, the indigenization requirements have gone up. So it's that way, making sure that directionally more and more indigenization would happen. And this is across board. There used to be huge confusion in IDDM because IDDM always allowed a backdoor entry to the foreigner walking in. By saying I'll do 65% indigenously and allow me under IDDM. So that confusion has been sorted out. By IDDM means by IDDM only now. And rest obviously gets onto the lower priorities of buying. So that's another good thing which has been sorted out and is working quite positively. I mean, I'm sure it will work positively. Third major part, we used to always hear about the DPP to be changing every 2 years. The last DPP was alive for 4 years, and small tweakings, purely I must say there have been 4 tranches of those tweakings. All those 4 tranches have actually helped industry make the DPP easier. This DPP very clearly says it is now going to be there for exactly 5 years. So next review of DPP, there's a firm commitment now only in 2025. So there's a 5 year of stability. All of us have all along been asking for stability of a policy. Here's the stability which is being talked about. Of course, if there are some real pain areas, the pain areas would be accommodated in the form of some interim kind of amendments. I would say enormously positive things. When you have long-term contracts, and this is where I would say the Navy pushed for some of those things. The rupee inflation, like the FERV, has been brought in for long-term contracts beyond 5 years. we had actually suggested, as a part of all the comments being made on that March policy, that you bring it in the same way also for all other contracts. If there are more than 5 years of contract, which Navy, many projects go beyond 5 years, so they say that there should be a rupee inflation as well as foreign exchange rate variation, which is anyway payable. The rupee inflation was granted in case of warships. It was also mentioned in chapter 2, but the second document which has now come in, it has taken it away. So there's absolute confusion because when something is to be made superior or better, in the second draft, it has been taken away. And of course, this is something which the government has also said. Please tell us the omissions and please tell us all those kind of issues which you see between the draft 1 and draft 2. All payment terms for warships and those kind of things, because that's where the largest quantum for Larsen Toubro, besides the land systems. I noticed that the payment terms have only become worse. So there was huge amount of debate at the time of the first draft, and first draft actually talked of making some of those long-term changes being industry friendly. They all have gone back and they have become worse in case of the draft. In case of nomination of defense PSUs, which earlier was rampant, by verbal communication, it used to be always talked, and there have been hundreds and hundreds of formal communications in which Ministry of Defense has said there won't be nominations, but nominations, even the chapter for that nomination in case of warship submarine building, it stays. And it was heavily commented upon that why do you need it? So very, I would say the chapter stays, but the chapter has very wise wording change. And I must tell you how the viciousness of the writer behind. He said that instead of defense PSU nomination, it is Indian industry nomination. And in the tables down the line, how to select that industry partner, it says you must have a track record on only 8-star category warships. 8-star category warships till date have 100% been nominated for last 20 years, and that makes it 85% nomination towards PSUs in terms of value. So by saying that I will allow an Indian company also to come in other than a PSU, you won't get qualified. The God is in details. The details would disallow you to be ever playing a role in that. So the nomination is here and it will stay. So the policy has actually, I would say, in March went far more positive. In July, it has dramatically dropped, and that's exactly how I see the scenario change. Some of the good initiatives also, which were in between announced that there will be a negative list of import. The policy now talks about the negative list, and there's a lot of action happening on that front. Along with it is a part of the budget, which will certainly be made into an indigenous specific budget. But indigenous specific budget, I know, although a head would be provided in the budget heads, if there is no money, there won't be anything that would happen. Gross comments again at top level, if I have to say, a lot of new thinking which has come in for faster acquisition. A whole lot of trial related things sorted out, and a whole lot of those things are now going to be only what is necessary will be checked in the field trials, which will cut down the trial times. At the same time, it all depends on how the user takes it, because we had huge amount of, I would say, use a proper street word, maramari on this subject. The man in the committee who is Naval 1, he says, I don't need these trials. I'm prepared to take it based on a certification from an OEM because he has his name to keep. The Army says, no, I want every possible trial to be done. So it's a question of user feeling empowered, whether he needs it or whether he does not need it. And to what quantum and to what level of this thing. So the DPP now says, if it's not needed, don't even ask for it. But by policy, it's been opened up. By practice, the Army will not open it. So that's exactly where the nuance between Army, Navy. The Navy says, I'll do away with it and I want to move fast. While The army says, no, I still want to go the same old way in terms of trials and testing. Talk of anything beyond that in terms of newer ways of buying. So like the leasing has come in, Tyagi very rightly said that there's ITC related buying, which is dated because every 6 to 8 months, the obsolescence will ensure that something new you will buy. So there are shorter time frames there, which have actually come in. And that's essentially where overall, if I see, there are some negatives which I'm sure is still open for debate, and some of these lapses between the draft 1 and draft 2, I believe should get corrected. But at the same time, the basic issues remain. There's no money, the stability which has come in, but at the same time, one does not know to what extent the time frames will actually get cut. The trials have been to some extent only the essentials will get done, but you don't know whether the user will want to behave and accept that kind of challenge, because the responsibility then moves to the user. And today the user feels far more comfortable. It's a question of color of the uniform. He feels far more comfortable that 100% I want to check before. And that's essentially where we see. In terms of simplification, I see a sizable amount of simplification. Some of the terms actually have become better. And of course, as I said, some have gone for the worst, typically like the payment terms and bank guarantees and those kind of things. If I look at the overall, little off the track, overall infrastructure and defense will mean buying by government of, even if I take out of that 105 lakhs which the finance minister talked about, 70% government would fund. So let's say 75 lakh crores, and another, let's say 10 lakh crores becomes defense purchases. Bank guarantees for 85 lakh crore, our entire banking system today does not have an ability to provide. Because the banking capital is today less than half, and at that capital there's an upper limit to what you physically can get as a bank guarantee being a corporate. And there's an upper limit for the banks to actually give you. So, the one who sees an sort of a gross picture, I can say the banks will just run out of money unless the banks are dramatically refunded in their capital. We will have a scenario whether the government through policies will keep asking for bank guarantees, and our entire banking system, including government owned and private, won't ever be able to provide those bank guarantees. So what happened during the last 3 or 4 years? Bank guarantee costs went up more than 3 to 4 times. I see the next 4 to 5 years, it will become virtually obnoxiously high. Unless we now say that if you are serious about it, now allow the foreign banking also to be able to give a bank guarantee. And unless that is something which is brought in, for Ministry of Defense purchases, I'll tell you, the strategic partnership starts coming in. The value of those contracts will be 2 lakh crores. Minimum 60% would get covered by a bank guarantee. So 120,000 crores. And who are those people? There's just 4 of us who are sitting right on this call. Tell me, where is that additional 120,000 crores of bank guarantees will come from? Because today the banks are already stretched in what the existing businesses, all the corporates are doing, and that's where the cost of that demand supply, the costs have dramatically gone up. So I see scenarios of something happening at one level. The other part of the economy just does not take cognizance of that. We came in for IBC with a very, very good aim, but the IBC has meant the banking capital has today dramatically dropped. If that is the scenario, how does the government ever want to implement its infrastructure plan, which includes defense in a way? So, of course, as we go on, maybe some more points I'll come out. The absolute at the top end, some of those that came to my mind I mentioned. Thank you.
Thank you, Patil sir. Thank you very much. Now may I request Mr. Bhatia, Rajinder Bhatia, to give his remarks.
Thank you, Anilesh. Thank you, Mahajanji. My apologies for joining a little late. I was on another call. but it's a very important meeting and I would like to put across my points. Sir, before I start, choti si Einstein had made one comment once, and it said that doing the same thing the same way and expecting a different result is madness. So what we see every time is an incremental change, sometimes for the better, sometimes for the worse. But transformational change, which is what the industry needs, really does not come through. Let me start by the so-called a very good document which we all get excited about, which came day before yesterday, which was Defense Production and Export Policy, which came out. So the best documents are the ones which have very short, I would say,
So you're on mute. Samadharji, you're on mute.
I think he's had a power outage, I can see.
Yeah, I think Rajendra has got a power outage. Yeah.
Yeah, incidentally, this point of Rajendra, I know well, I can articulate and try and put it in his words. Anything which is short and sweet actually can get implemented. 2018, this document came. What came day before is 90% old wine in new bottle.
New bottle, absolutely.
Except addition of the export policy anyway existed. It was not called policy, it was called the export guidelines. So the export guidelines and the old defense production policy has been merged to be put in the form of the new document. But that old document of 2018 never got implemented. It was the best possible policy document to read. Something absolute version 1 of it was just 6 or 7 pages. Version 2 of it, which was much more detailed in 2018, was somewhere around 14-15 pages and some 1 or 2 annexes, all put together 17 pages. The new document is again something like 17-18 pages, but that's not what is implemented. We don't know when it will get implemented and if at all it will get implemented, because all great policy documents don't get implemented, and it is very simple. It simply says we shall not buy ABC. And if it is anybody who in India offers it, I will not allow an import. This was talked to first time in 2011. And we only have by global buying that is continuing. Current scenario last 4 financial years is we have 2/3 orders which are placed on foreign OEM and 1/3 on Indian OEMs. So that's Rajendra's statistics. The next point Rajendra obviously would have made is in the new DPP, the indigenous industry definition, which he mentioned in last of our discussions. The indigenous company definition today has been changed from the first draft, or even for that matter, the DPP 16, which necessitated Indian control. So more than 49% ownership for a foreigner would not be allowed on the specific Indian categories, typically like
He's
the
back.
make, buy and make. Rajendra, are you back?
Yeah, he's back.
Yeah, he's still connecting to audio.
Yeah.
Yeah, Rajendra, your 2 favorite points, I continued trying to put myself into your skin.
Rajendra, he completed your talk. Thank you so much.
Give him a chance, Ashok.
No, so that he's been very passionate about the indigenous, industry definition. So that I said is the second point, Rajendra, beyond the defense production policy point.
That's my point also. Good.
Good. Rajendra, you are not audible.
I think his connection is weaker.
Yeah.
Probably that is the reason.
I must tell you, every chapter by chapter, there was a definition of indigenous company. And there was a gross definition upfront in the document. Now the gross definition has been substituted by as per the corporate law. Now corporate law says 74% FDI is automatic.
Can I audible now?
Please.
Yeah, go ahead, Rajendra.
Yeah, Rajendra. I was only re-articulating I said Rajendra's passionate 2 points. One was the DPRP I talked of 2018, which you stopped because of power or whatever. Second I talked about is the Indian vendor.
I am going to reiterate both of them slightly, but in a different manner.
Good.
And sir, the point was there was actually a best production policy which was running just 3.5 pages, which came in 2011 and laid down the policy. We had one coming out in 2018, which was some 26-30 pages, and which again laid down certain things in very specific forms. And now we have 2020, a lot of things of 2018 and 11 have moved out, although some targets have been kept, but we have a policy which is coming up. Sometimes I get a feeling that these are diversionary tactics. You know, you get industry excited on a particular policy, then you don't have anything happening for 5 years, then you come out with another document, then it goes away, then another document comes which goes away. Actually, if you go back, this is exactly the situation which happened from 2006, from the time the report started coming up, when we started talking about RURs, and then we started talking about Make One programs, then we started talking about strategic partnership. Nothing actually moved in those 15 years, except that we had a new policy coming up. So one thing is good, that the policy must find somewhere a stop. Policy is an intent, and it is not a direction by itself. Direction comes from the so-called the operationalization of that policy. So I think there should be now a marked attempt to stop more of policy making than getting down to implementing those policies on the ground. There's no point every time changing the goalposts and taking it further and moving step by step. The things are not going to change, and hence the first statement which I made, which Albert Einstein said, that if you really want a quantum change or a transformational change, think of a transformational manner. Now, the second point which comes up, and which I continue to keep saying, and I hope somewhere we will understand, there is a difference between ownership and control. Any self-respecting country, and we will realize the perils of giving control to a foreign entity maybe a few years down the line. But there is no question, you can make whatever FDI you want to make, but ensure that the control lies of the technology developed within the country. Every self-respecting country does that in the world. Take a look at Germany, United States, any country which is developed or underdeveloped always likes to have control over the defense products which are developed in the country. We cannot just let a total freedom with somebody coming out with the X percentage of FDI just for the purpose of development and doing and then saying. If that was the example, India should have had the best technology even in aerospace by now, because most of the aerospace development is done by fully owned engineering centers sitting in Bangalore and Hyderabad. GE has some 12,000 people working on those. But we don't have any knowledge of that. We cannot get that technology. So if today we are going to look at short-term gains of some FDI coming in, just for the purpose of carrying on with a little impetus of manufacturing, I think we are probably missing the forest for the wood. This is a very, very serious point and needs to be taken. Let the FDI is not important, sir. Control is important. If tomorrow you say, okay, we'll set up a aircraft line, and let me give you a hypothetical example, and say X company puts 74% FDI and says that now I am the strategic partner and I will build it in the country. That's what the DPP permits today, or DAP permits today. What stops him from saying that I will keep all critical technologies in that part of the world and nothing will come to the country? Are we looking at becoming a self-reliant nation, or just one of the nations doing contract manufacturing? So I think, sir, the most important part here would be this. Of course, I tend to totally agree with what Jen said on the question of, when we saw the drafts in March, there were a lot of positives. There was a very clear definition of Indian company. There was a very clear Indian control mentioned. All those seem to have gone out with that 74% FDI being taken and the DIPP letter being referred to as the thing for carrying on. That means there is no need for having an Indian CEO. There is no need for having Indian people controlling it. You can do whatever. I am telling you, sir, there are 240,000 Indian engineers working for foreign OEMs, all top defense OEMs in India. But we don't bring any technology home. They underwrite our controls. So what is the point in building on something which is already good? My last point, which would be that key of any policy document or the acquisition procedure must be brevity. And I tend to agree with Dr. Tyagi. In 2002, defense procurement procedure, as it was called, was a secret document consisting of just 20 pages. Now we have reached 800 pages. More document written, the more issues. Of course, there is clarity at some stage that the things are becoming, we are there saying that there is more, we are talking and giving transparency, we are telling you more about it. But somewhere there has to be a stop, otherwise it will become like the Indian Penal Code. We'll have volumes running into DPP and lawyers will run amok trying to decipher this document.
हाँ जी बताइए.
So these were the 3 points which I have got, sir.
ठीक है
The
जी,
key
मुझे अगर
point
नहीं
would
हुआ हो
be-
तो मेरी रिक्वेस्ट है बता दीजिएगा मुझे दोनों.
So my key request here would be, more important than the policy document today would be how well we operationalize this document. And for industry, nothing is more important than actually physical orders in hand, which is what is not coming at all. And if you take a look at what has happened with all the policy changes in last 4 or 5 years, I think JD has given that data number of time that if you take a look out of some 80 or 1,000 crores, which has come to the Indian industry, some 64,000 crores have gone to PSUs, 16,000 crores have come to the Indian industry, which is a pretense. So the key point finally would be orders in hand. I think I'll rest my case on this and let the next speaker give his views on the subject.
Anilesh ji is again not there.
Maybe I'll take on.
Just one moment, Ravi. Now that Rajendra talked of this, Ashwini ji, let me tell you what Rajendra mentioned the last 3 financial year, it's officially available because all of us monitor these numbers, but officially available from the Rajya Sabha questions. 146,000 crores of orders placed onto foreigners and 74,000 crore worth of order placed on Indian companies in 3 financial years. That's 15, 16, 17. Ending that's 16, 17, 18. Those are the 3 years. And in the same period, the Indian companies' physical sale to Ministry of Defense out of their order book is 1,94,000. So whatever order book the Indian companies together had, we are poorer by 120,000 crores over those 3 years. And this scenario of private companies not having virtually anything to do, PSUs even today have 20 years of order backlog. There are some who have 5 years of backlog, and I can send this data to you. One PSU today has a 5 years of backlog. HSL has shorter, but the moment the LCA order gets signed, they have much longer backlog. And there are few shipyards who have more than 20 and 30 years of backlog. That's the current scenario simply because of mindless nomination. After this, in DPP 2020, they said they will take it away. The nomination chapter was supposed to have been removed. It remained. It was fought for and it was assured that it will be removed. It is again there. That's where I said that when it has been retained, with the proviso that it now, instead of saying defense PSU, it will say Indian industry, but the Indian industry, the norm of selection actually says you must have delivered a warship of A plus A star class. That means a frigate, destroyer, or a aircraft carrier. Now nobody has delivered it except one PSU or 2 PSUs. So they will continue to remain nominated. While for all those PSUs, 3 dozens of systems on those PSUs, including all weapon systems, are delivered and installed on those ships by Larsen & Toubro. So if I can deliver the high value add and the balance half comes from Bharat Electronics, which is all the electronic system, these two together form the bulk of the ship. The hull, any stupid guy can make. So the policies today moved ahead and dramatically fallen back. I'm sure there have been enough resistances within the bureaucracy, and since it was all being shared by the DJ Acquisition, who is far more industry-friendly bureaucrat, the other bureaucrat thereafter seems to have come in, and the villain in the piece we know is always the defense production. The defense production never wants anything to move in favor of private sector. And we keep hearing the same was the issue in case of the helicopters. HAL was supposed to be not allowed for helicopters, but HAL has made 2 bids. So they come backdoor. The document for strategic partnership in helicopter says it is only for private sector. And HAL still submits and it is still under consideration. And it's all because of Secretary Defense Production. Nothing wrong with the man, it's the position.
And JD, then you must also add that there is a need to de-link the defense production from actually production activity.
No,
There should
no,
be
the
a,
reason
there
all of
should
us,
be a-
why all of us only? I tell you, every
No.
of the 6 major committees, right from Naresh Chandra committee onward, everybody has said this. Government has not done it. Neither the previous government did, nor the current government last 6 years has done it. Thus, every committee has said separate it out. Every committee has said separate out the acquisition. Give them the fund, let them be responsible. It
But
has
sir,
not happened.
let's concentrate on, this procedure.
That's all. No, but the same thing links to the current document.
So, Ashwini ji and we all, are fully with you on this. So in the previous discussions, we have already assured ki that at appropriate forums, Ashwini ji will take, these things.
Yeah, obviously needs to be pushed. And same thing applies to this policy.
Yeah.
This policy has the same lacunas.
Yeah. So let's let us request other guests also to make
Yeah.
remarks. Ashok ji, if you want to come in.
Yeah, okay. So, one thing I the overarching point that I realized in this was that businesses were not being treated as an integral part of the ecosystem. It was always how do we cover ourselves कि कुछ cancel करना है, extension करना है, कैसे करना है? अगर 6 महीने में ये complete नहीं हुआ, where do we go for extension? Who we can extend for 1 year? Who can extend? The whole process, the businessman who conducting the trial, who doing the working capital, who doing the investment, there is no concern at all, zero concern for the businessman as such. So that is something really, really galling that we are not thinking businessman as an integral part of the whole development process. And I'm really surprised because when we look at it, their wealth creation happens only at 2 places. One is in the farmland, one in the industry. If this doesn't happen and government just prints money, what will people buy with that money? Nothing. And if this industrialist is not encouraged to, and supported by the government, we will be in a very, very pathetic situation. And we are in any country we can look at, you just see how respected is the businessman, and we can tell that country is either the developed country or not. But if having said the general, general tone of the thing, that businesses should be really respected and treated as the integral part of the development process. The first point I want to talk about is the Indian vendor, which they talked about. It should be very, very clear. Absolutely no thing. The Indian company means, you may give any definition, 74% FDI, etc. is allowed. We don't care about that. But Indian vendor means majority control and majority ownership. That is, 2 things are absolutely there. If the control and ownership is majority ownership is not there, it's not an Indian company, and they will not be eligible for Indian by IDDM or anything like that. The second is, so the indigenous content. When do they check the indigenous content? I didn't find any clarity in the indigenous content when they would check it. I think it should be checked at the FET stage, FE trial stage. It should not be checked later. If at the trial stage it is found not to have indigenous content as per the make, they should be rejected at that stage. So that is very, very important. Otherwise, I'll get a foreign product, I'll run it through, and then later say, sir, main kar dunga baad mein. वो नहीं है. अगर indigenously developed है already, it should be encouraged. So FET stage itself, the indigenous content should be checked. The third is, there is a concept called confirmatory trial. Now, what they have said is confirmatory trial should be allowed to increase the base of the vendors. Now, what do you mean by that? I mean, they have failed in the trial. Now you want to give a guy who has failed to come back again because you want to increase the vendor base. That means the successful guys have to wait for the confirmatory trial to be over. Does it make any sense? And the point here is there is an acquisition team. The primary purpose is acquisition of the items. Somebody has passed. Why don't you finish the thing? Why do you want to give the confirmatory trial? And the purpose, alleged purpose is that it is to increase the vendor base. So that is something I didn't find acceptable. Third is that even in the case of Buy Indian IDDM, it has been written that a resultant single vendor will occur. One thing is single vendor situation, wherever it is happening, if it is under Buy Indian IDDM, there should be no special permissions or anything required. Because by very definition, a indigenously designed and developed company for any product, there will be not more than one company in most of the cases in Buy IDDM. Worldwide, we have 3 or 4 companies developing a single product. How can you say in India we will treat, there should be two vendors? Buy IDDM, single vendor testing, but it should be treated as a separate category that we should be assumed that it will always be a single vendor situation. Very good if there are more than one vendors, but the process should be very, very super fast for. But they should not. We will treat them as a resultant single vendor, then a technical oversight committee, and the process should not be very long for Buy Indian IDDM. And this was agreed by originally when we made the proposal. They said single vendor is acceptable, and we will not. There is no more questions about that. So that is the thing. And again, CNC negotiations also Buy IDDM should be a vendor. It should not be treated as a resultant vendor again, because that's a very long process in that. Another point was regarding the repeat order. In the repeat order, there is a clause that says if it should be 5 years from the completion of the previous supply, last supply of the previous. After 5 years, you cannot give a repeat order. Now, the issue with this is that if we want the same equipment, even after 5 years, suppose it could be an actual operational equipment. In my case, it's a simulator. Let us say you want a T90 simulator after 5 years or even 10 years. Why should you go for another? Why should you set the limit of 5 years when it is the same equipment with no changes or slight changes? So the 5-year clause, I don't know what was the brilliance behind that, the brilliant insight behind that, but I think it should be revised and removed for product. If the same product is required, it should be removed. And another clause, the whole timeline that is there for 106 weeks or which is there is no clause anywhere which says it is ASAP or 12 weeks, ASAP or 3 weeks maximum. The timeline should be specified as the maximum. It cannot be that, because I have gone through this, where we were the only guys who qualified. We went to the director and said, boss, why are you not doing? He said, आप यहाँ पे क्यों आए हो? मेरे को 12 हफ्ते का टाइम है ये देखने के लिए. भाई कोई है नहीं यार, 12 हफ्ते तो 10 लोग होते तो आपको टाइम लगता था. नहीं, I have 12 weeks. If I do earlier than that, they'll ask me, तो तेरा क्या interest है? आप जाइए यहाँ से. So what I'm saying is, please put a clause as soon as possible, but not later than these 3 weeks or whatever timeline you have given. At least they will know that they have to do it faster than that. Because in the earlier, the timeline was 12 weeks. There was no as soon as possible. So, and another point I request is, if there is any delay at every stage, please hold someone accountable. TEC stage, I don't know why the TEC stage is, that's another point. TEC chairman should be held responsible. If at the trial stage something happened, there should be some trial OIC who should be held responsible. Why are you taking so long? And this should be recorded, and they should be intimated in advance that if you delay, this is going to impact you, you will be held accountable for that. Because the businessman there is carrying so much of investment which he has to get back. So there should be, I think that accountability is very, very very important. And the one point about, what is happening is every time we are trying to develop one product, now this is a very personal, but I know others may also have this thing. We, for the past 20 years, we have been trying to sell to our simulators to the army in a big way. Every time we make a proposal, a letter comes from Simulator Development Division. Simulator Development Division says, sir, we can make it cheaper. You know what happens after that? Everyone freezes. मतलब उसने cheaper बोला, तू Zen से कैसे खरीदोगे तुम? कितना पैसा दिया Zen ने तुमको? अभी 20 साल हो गए सब पहले लेटर लिख के उन्होंने आज तक एक प्रोडक्ट नहीं बनाया. Who has been held responsible? If we had got the orders, we would have become a dominant force in not only in the in the third world countries, but even in Western countries, we would have become a dominant force. That would be about 2,000 crores worth of simulators. And this one letter comes from the internal organization, Army Internal. Sir, ये तो हम बना देंगे, ये तो बहुत ज़्यादा charge कर रहे हैं. What business do they have? I mean, we would. So the potential losses is not only in terms of the army is underprepared for a war with China or Pakistan. The second is all the talent that we could have retained in India, which is going to foreign countries and doing that. And the third is exports. We would have done thousands of crores worth of exports today with those advanced equipment, which we have reinvested the money. That's not possible today. Why? Because some officer writes. So how do we prevent that kind of thing from happening where organizations sabotage the indigenous efforts that are already gone? And the last 2 points, offset, I don't know, simulator was always there in offset, suddenly they have removed it this time. Now this is a product that is there indigenously developed, 100% indigenously developed, not 80, 90%. But why has it been removed from both the services and the product list? We don't know why. We have written to them, but it has not been included in that. And finally, the Make 2 or whatever is happening, 4 years have happened, no orders have come through. I think there is complete lack of seriousness in that, and something has to be done about it. So with that, I'll conclude my harangue. Yeah, but I think overall this is a better effort than the previous one. But these are major issues that I feel we have.
Thank you, Ashokji. Most of your sentiments we are already aware of, and probably Ashwini has also taken note of many of the things. Now may I request Raviji. Raviji has joined us from Mahindra. Raviji,
Thank you, Anilesh.
Make some remarks, so you can make it now as well.
Thank you, Anilesh ji. Mahajan ji, good evening. So first I will talk on Swadeshi.
I am Anilesh as well as Mahajan, so you need to.
So let me say Ashwini ji, okay. Okay. So let me first talk of Swadeshi and Videshi. The government has announced 76% FDI. Even before there was 100% allowed in this country, you had to take a proposal, go to the government. Foreigners could come and set up shop in India. So I really don't know what is the driver. Now, you want to set up a company in India, it should still be categorized as a foreign company. It cannot be a Swadeshi Indian company with 51% FDI from abroad. The primary reason is whatever technology is residing there resides in that company under the control of the foreign nation. It is not Swadeshi. The day they want, they will turn the tap off, that they will delete the files, the servers will be abroad in foreign countries, all the diagrams, all the technology will reside there. You will merely access it as long as access is there. This is something that is very important that we understand before I come to the DAP or DPP or whatever we want to call it. So, when you come to RBI, when you come to banks, I will give an example. Hong Kong Bank or a DBS subsidiary in India, which is a 100% subsidiary or even a wholly owned subsidiary, which is beyond 51%, is categorized as a foreign bank. And every quarter, RBI brings out a circular, which is a foreign bank, which is an Indian bank. Now there seems to be nothing happening in this direction in the defense side. So clearly there is no distinction between domestic and foreign or Swadeshi and Videshi. There is, to my mind, there is nothing. Now, what is the impact on DAP? DAP has got various categories: Buy Indian IDDM, Buy and Make Indian. Now you have a new category, Buy Global manufacture in India, and you have Buy Global. Now everybody has spoken of the Indian vendor definition. by the Indian vendor definition, the foreign companies can come in. What is the need for having so many categories? This foreign company which sits here will qualify for all these categories. So there is no purchase preference. According to me, all categories get lumped into one lot. The foreign company can apply, which is my understanding. So somehow we must wait for this FDI policy. It needs to be very clear whether there is purchase preference like every other ministry, or in this ministry there is no purchase preference. That is something that we need to really understand. And only then should DAAP go forward. Without this policy, to say that I am linking it to a future policy is, to my mind, not right. Next point, let me come down is to transfer of technology. I have already mentioned that technology being transferred to a foreign subsidiary is not Indian. Now, when it comes to offsets, the private sector was denied transfer of technology. We had requested them. They've added some line and said that in case the technology resides in India, it can be exported, and they've given some conditions. They've indicated it can come to Indian industry. In the very next line, they continue to permit DPSUs and DRDO to get technology, and there are no such restrictions. So clearly, you are telling the foreigners that please go to DPSUs and DRDO and don't come to Indian industry. Indian industry will pay taxes towards the benefit of the government, but that is not required. You please go to DRDO, they will spend the money. That is the indication you have given the foreigners in transfer of technology. The third point I would come to is this concept of CNC. If we have won a bid and you are L1, please honor the price. You are government of India. We are not a tin pot country that you cannot honor the price. We have bid. It is a competitive bid. Please honor the price. After that, please don't stretch. Kindly honor the bid. There is nowhere in the world that you're establishing reasonableness, trying to say this screw is cheaper and that this is cheaper. We are giving you a bid. It is quantified. Kindly honor it. I think Ashokji also spoke of confirmatory trials. Similar to that is a point about essential parameters B. So there is essential parameters A, there is essential parameters B, and there is enhanced parameter. We can understand there is enhanced, you're going to give some point. One person has it, other person does not have it. Now, what is essential parameter B? You are denying somebody who already has the capability. If nobody has the capability, if no vendor has the capability, then essential parameter B works. There are 3 people bidding, all 3 don't have the capability. Let us say one person has the capability, which means you're doing disservice to that person. So, even if one person has the capability in essential parameter B, it has to be tested for all 3 players. Or please move that if you do not want to put it in B, even if one person has it, it should automatically go to enhanced parameter. You cannot do this, which means you will select people by parameters. Let me now come to one final point. I don't want to take everybody's sort of time. Everywhere we go to, I am being like, I have a price negotiation now. I am being benchmarked with a DPSU who has given something. Now, when we won this contract, the DPSU did not even qualify and he did not even bring the equipment which was being tested. Now you're trying to benchmark the price there on something that he did not even offer because he knew it would not qualify. I think, sir, it is time to listen to Mr. Modi when he said this government will bring minimum, we'll have minimum government and maximum governance. I really like that statement. It is time to move the DPSUs to Ministry of Heavy Industries so that we have a level playing field. We have a ministry that is looking at all the DPSUs. Why can't they look after these 4 or 5 DPSUs that are going to be there in the defense industry? Then we have a level playing field. They are treated equally like other Indian companies who are creating wealth for India. So this is something that I would leave as the final point and let others also express their view. Thank you so much. But we must be Swadeshi. We must look at being Swadeshi, and we need to sort the Swadeshi Videshi out before the DAP comes out.
Absolutely.
Thank you, sir. Thank you.
Thank you, Raviji. So now may I request Sujit ji to come in. Sujit ji was former senior consultant at Niti Aayog. and he understands the subject inside out. So Sujit, you wanted to speak and wanted to blast, these documents. So you can go ahead and do that, sir.
Thank you, and good evening to everybody. One of the first culprits in drafting the DPP 2002 was me. So I carry a lot of sin on my head. So before I get into a proper critique of the DPP and many worthy people for industry assets, so I would like to just highlight the fundamental flaws which exist. First and foremost is there is no understanding in the Ministry of Defense as to what is R&D, research and development, what is design and engineering, what is system integration and manufacturing. Pata nahi unko. Consequently, the R&D, which means into deep research of materials and algorithms, artificial intelligence, these are the sort of things that DRDO should do. He's ended up doing, design and engineering, system engineering and manufacture, which is the job of industry to do, which is a capability that industry has. Consequently, everything goes for its things, number one. Number two, there is zero understanding as to how manufacturing takes place in the MOD. They think the OEM makes everything under the sun, and it took us a long time. Jayant also knows this from before, to tell them that nothing is made by one company, everything is not made by one company. It is a full TRI's vendor, and at one time we had to tell them for the K9 system there were 6,700 odd vendors. For the Chinook there are 10,000 vendors. So because they don't understand this about the techniques of production, the supply chain which exists, and so we go wrong in the drafting of the DPP and everything else. The third point which is attached to it is a complete zero understanding of the definition of quality assurance and quality control. The quality assurance can only be done by an on-site manufacturing facility. Quality control may be done by a third-party assurance. So, आप quality assurance plan पहले बना रहे हो जब process ही नहीं मालूम आपको. I mean, this is like completely vague. Third point is on planning. Bharat Sarkar has moved away from 15 5-year plans and all of that to a new format where we are looking at 15 years, 7 years and 3 years, where it is outcome driven and it is supported by budget. The Ministry of Defense also has to do that change from that 15-year LTIPP to a midterm review program and to a 3-year document. They're called vision, mission and something else. And the more important thing is such planning cannot be done in a silo within the Ministry of Defense without interministerial consultations, without talking to 10 other ministries, whether it is HRD, whether it is skill development, whether it is MSME and all of them. This is not possible for them to do it. And I'm telling you this because I've been in Niti Aayog, so I understand how these things work. Working in a silo and making some plan is not happening. It's not, there's no outcome definition, there's no budget allowed for it or plan bana ke baith. Next point is on this whole contracting, lack of understanding on contracting, this categorization. I think every secretary DP or DG acquisition who comes here, if he feels that he's added another 100 pages to the DAP and created some new bloody category, he's done a great job. I think this is a stupid thing to have done. For a long time, in Niti Aayog, we have said follow the GFR. There are only 3 categories of tendering. It's a global tender, it's a limited tender, or it's a single vendor. If it's limit, you limit it by whatever you want to limit it by, capacity, by technology, by indigenous content or this, that, no. We cannot have this whole cock and bull story of 100 pages on buy global, buy and make, 50% indigenous, 20% this. This is an RFP issue. But the tendering process is very simple. It's either global or it is limited or it is single, in which case intergovernmental contracts, agreements also fall on that price. Fifth is a complete lack of understanding as to how businesses work. There's a cost of doing business, there's a way of doing business, there's an ease of doing business. Kuch pata nahi hai. Cost comes from the moment we as a company, we start the process of RFI preparation, and this cost continues to add till we win the contract. Whether we win the contract or not is a different issue, but there is some cost to it. And this cost of doing business is an expenditure item that we have to be processed. Ease comes from the process. And of course, the way comes from all these trials, COC conformance, all these job which has been put into it. First point. Second in business is investment. Investment will only come through if you have a sustainable business case. And that sustainable business case indicates itself on 4 points. Predictability. Timeline honi chahiye na. अब आपने वहाँ पे अर्नेस्ट मनी डिपॉजिट जमा कर दिया 200 करोड़ का, पता नहीं कब उनको इसका कब मिलेगा वापस. You are now tied up capital for no rhyme or reason in whole lot of MOD contracts on which there is no visibility when they'll be concluded, when it will not be concluded. On any board, I'll find it extremely difficult to accept any proposal from any of my team members where there is such a huge amount of bank guarantee in the air, and we don't know whether the project will go through, whether it'll get done, whether the RFP will be retracted, kuch pata nahi hai. So there is a problem about predictability in terms of timelines. Second is in terms of credibility. The experience on credibility of the Ministry of Defense is zero. Zero. Because they have a complete autonomy on issuing RFI and not following through. They'll issue an RFP which we won't follow through. If you just look at the number of RFPs that were issued for small arms, there were 43 RFPs. And I have the full data on that. 43 RFPs were issued by various people to buy small arms from 1998. और अभी जाके 2020 में import करके बैठ गए. So that is the problem about credibility. Stability, I'm sure, as JD Saab also brought out, there has to be some stability about procedures, tax, whether this you get CDEC or not, whether you'll get exemptions here or not. Some processes, some credibility has to be. Clarity has to be there so that every one of us who is bidding in the document, we all understand the same thing in a similar way. It's not that one chap understands it in some other way, we understand it in some other way. The third point, as far as business is concerned, is scale and size. Scale and size does not come from piecemeal and batch production, which is what is happening in our country today. It requires demand aggregation. When I was in Niti Aayog, we aggregated the total requirement of small arms at 20 million pieces. After having worked with the state governments, with the Ministry of Home Affairs, with the Ministry of Defense, and security agencies, 20 million pieces. And we had said to the then, to our present Defense Secretary, who took it very positively, and to the PMO at this time, that we need to issue one mother of all contracts for manufacture of 20 million pieces as a number, but as an annual requirement of 150,000 rifles and weapons every year, split between 2 winning candidates, including the ammunition. What happened? The army screamed, you know, kal laud jayenge. So I need to import some small arms from 6 or someplace. We went and got that 80,000, and they got 90,000 from Israel, and they're now again getting 80,000. Ordnance Factory Board said we'll merge them. They are only 0.8% of their total workforce is employed in the manufacture of small arms. Their employee to turnover ratio is less than 8 lakhs per people. The total amount of real estate that they use for small arms is less than 1% of the total production capability. They took away the rest of it. They said, no, this must come to us. 650,000 went to them out of the 1.3 million that was being talked about there. Then what happens? OAP says, no, we are not happy with this. For all the other contracts that has to be done, OAP should be allowed to bid. And we now know, I'll come to it on OAP bidding. So we have a huge problem. Similarly, I like to suggest that L&T and many of our other companies here, Bharat Forge, Mahindra and all have developed huge capabilities and created systems and processes which are long-term in nature. I cannot shut down a production line of FPVs and IPVs, etc. because my batch khatam ho gaya. Hey, we used to lagate raho na, keep doing pipeline production of this. The Liberty ship model was the model by which the US built up shipbuilding capacity in their country. We should also do the same thing. Make 6 submarines, forget about it. Make another 6 submarines and forget about it. The design and engineering cost for the P-75I, including jigs, fixtures, and tooling, is a minimum of $2.5 billion. Spread over 6 submarines, it's $400 million each. And after 6 submarines, we forget it. Kaise hoga? Same stories for the NUH, 125. Why 125? It should be a batch production. Bana di chahiye aap. By the time the last one is built, the first one would have retired. So I feel that pipeline production must be brought in. In all these things, the chief culprit are this whole concept of staff requirements, input requirements. Whereas what is actually required is performance parameters, output performance parameters. To give you an example, again, this small arms case, what is the output that the soldier wants? He wants a man dead at 500 meters. That's all, na? It should be lightweight, hona chahiye, ye hona chahiye, chalo, theek. But at the end time, I cannot give him this specification also that this man has to be killed at 500 meters is a function of kinetic energy, mass and velocity. Now this is a combination with the designer will work out कि कितना mass होना चाहिए, कितना speed होना चाहिए ताकि वो मर जाए. अब हमने क्या किया, we have put down कि muzzle velocity इतना होना चाहिए, round का weight इतना होना चाहिए, propellant इतना होना चाहिए, 26 के पेज का, 28 pages of bloody specifications for a rifle. The CISF has issued a specification in 2 sheets, very focused. That's all that we want. So this is a perennial problem. Just because we are a user, I'm a user, I'm watching this, using this computer screen and all that. Now tomorrow you might say, okay, you've been using this computer screen for now 20 years, so please make specifications for making computers. Like hell I can. I cannot. I've been driving a car for 40 years, but somebody tells me, please make specifications for the car after 3 years. I can't. And I cannot make this specification. I'll give you a live example. I was given this job when I was a gunnery officer on a ship, where a simple job was to get some fireproof paint. I was young, 28 or some 26 years old. तो मैंने वही किया, निकाला 10 कैटलॉग, इधर उधर तब तो मिलता भी नहीं था. Took the most toughest parameters and we made some specification. No bloody paint company in India or anywhere could make that specification. That was the stupidest thing that I have personally done. And I don't think people have got more intelligent from my mistakes or anything else. People are still there. I made those mistakes. So I recognize these problems and I've submitted that I have made these mistakes. So these are part, I don't want to really get into a lot of things, but I'll just take 2-3 more points. Indigenous content has been spoken about. Again, they have, because of lack of understanding as to how system integration, how the value chain of manufacturing works, they have put on this TRIs vendors. उसको समझा के हम थक गए थे कि भैया ऐसे नहीं होता है. 6,700 contracts में कहाँ रखूंगा? 10% होना चाहिए, 5 crore होना चाहिए, ये होना चाहिए. This whole bloody bean counting exercise has to go. Benchmarking. In a meeting here in this conversation, I'm saying in a meeting at the highest level in government, 2-3 things were decided at the highest level. If Patil sir knows what I'm talking about. Benchmarking. Benchmarking was to be done away with. There's no provision under the general financial rules or any document of public procurement where there's a requirement of benchmarking. And just to tell you the truth, I don't know if any of you can see this. This is a story by the CAG. Out of 20 places, only 5% places they have had a accuracy, or not 4% cases they have had an accuracy of 2% in their benchmarking price. In some cases, the inaccuracy in benchmarking has been 186%. How can they do benchmarking? It's so difficult to do benchmarking, especially in any contract. And why the hell should you do it? As Ravi said, everybody reasonableness of price is to be done through competition. Then in this particular thing, in this DAP, they have gone further and added costing committees. So benchmarking is to be done by advisor cost. Costing committee has to be done by DG acquisition when they are doing IGA. And costing committee has to be formed for BPSUs under Secretary Defense Production. वो तो कोई भी number डाल देगा.
Conflict of interest.
तो वहाँ तो है ही. And the next point was on capacity assessment. I don't think anybody, I mean, tomorrow if you tell me whether this company can make a car or can't make a car or a high-tech car or not, I can't. Just because I drive a car, there's no way I can tell you whether this guy can do this or that. Capacity assessment was to be stopped because you have enough guarantees in terms of bidding for contracts. Unless a company has the capacity, not bid for their contract. And the point is, the moment you've done capacity assessment, you have transferred the risk to yourself. And who is responsible for it? After doing the deadly capacity assessment by the Navy, 3 P-15 destroyers cost escalation was 188%, 116 months was the time overrun. 3 P-17s, 54%, 54 months. P-15 Alpha जबकि बन चुका था. P-15 were already being built. P-15 Alpha capacity assessment के बाद 80 months overrun. Aircraft carrier capacity assessment के बाद अभी तक बन ही रहा है, पता नहीं कब बन जाएगा. As recent a case as GRSC's LCU, I'm sure any shipyard like L&T, anybody can make. 8 LCUs were ordered in 2011. Today is now 2020. 9 साल में उसने 8 LCU भी नहीं बना पाया. क्या capacity assessment किया आपने? Price has gone through the roof in each of these cases. So that's my second point. And the issue of nomination. Let me put a simple truth here. Why is nomination required? The only reason nomination is required because the day you open up to competition, this whole Pandora's box of overcharging by the DPSUs will come up in front. Those of us who have looked at our radar system, जो 5-10 crore का हमारा radar बनता है, वो बिल rubber stamp करके 25 में बेचता है. This is the main fear of nomination. So it is very convenient. Let the DPSU do it, चलेगा. And even after that, and we have done this discussion, JD Saab and me in Niti Aayog also, on fair competition. Even if you nominate, he happily loads on all those prices onto competitive bids. एक तो उसका ना खर्चा है ना कुछ है, ऊपर से वो पैसे भी इधर उधर ट्रांसफर हो रहे हैं बल्ले बल्ले. So it can't happen like that. Categorization classes I spoke about, demand aggregation I spoke about, contract negotiation. I think Ravi made a very good point. The most important thing is the contract negotiation committee has the empowered member of that department, whether it is finance, acquisition, production, service headquarters, etc. There is no requirement for a CNC report to be scrutinized once again by the acquisition manager or whatever he's called, or PDG, some such thing. It's not required. It is a CFA's call. We should just go from the CNC's report, put it to the CFA, एक noting बना के दे ये है, sign करिए बस. But we have to again put it through it. This issue about price variation clause is something that the industry has been asking since 2009, and we still haven't got it. It is encapsulated in the GFR for a long time, for 15-month programs. This is applicable to national highways, it is applicable to space, it is applicable to atomic energy, railways, दुनिया भर में. और यहाँ एक इतना complex काम कर रहे हैं aerospace defense industry में, the price variation is not given. How can you hold the price for 15 years? That's why I felt very good when Rafael actually didn't win that 126. Had he won that 126, he would have been bankrupt by now. He was talking about a 2008 price, which is to hold till 2040. मजाक कर रहे हैं उसके साथ. वो तो बच गया, नहीं तो खदेड़ देते उसको हम उसको. Then of course GST. Now GST, we wrote a long letter on GST, and that came from a very simple plea by a person who supplies bumpers to trucks. Army trucks. Now, as per the GST and ITCHS code, this is a vehicle carrying more than 8 people, so it attracts 28% GST on a truck. Army truck, ships are 5%, aircraft is 5%. Army truck mein bhaiya 28%. It was an uphill task to get that going, but we finally got that ready. But still, he's paying 18% on his truck, whereas on ships we are paying 5%. FDI. A lot has been spoken on FDI. I support FDI fully, but I do not support. Sorry, just one moment. I do not support there has to be just one number for the entire FDI. What has happened if you look at the, hello, can you hear me?
Yeah.
So what has happened in the FDI and the proposal that had actually gone was to actually link the FDI to the categories of the defense products. You know, for aircraft, it could be something else, tanks and something else, something. Shipbuilding with zero FDI hona chahiye. Hamare paas hai. Why should I allow permit FDI into shipbuilding or various other things? So there are 16 categories. And this is not something new that we are doing. If you look at the policy, the DGFT document on this, for railways, they have got 9 or 10 categories under which FDI is permitted. Isme itna, usme itna, isme itna. I can't have a blanket 74% all defense. Small arms may be 74%, aircraft carrier may be 74%, coffee banana, usme be 75%. We have to have a scaled FDI. This time they also brought in a concept called SCEP. Now the story behind the SCEP goes back to 2016. At that time, the revenue budget was very, very tight. So we were told by the government, आपके जो ships repairs and refits करते हैं, उसको आप capital में खींचो. Just put it in capital, and they were called revenue to capital cases. So we came away from the DPM, which was a defense procurement manual, which was being followed for repairs and refits, 803B, if I remember correctly. And we shifted that entire money into capital. And now these guys are broke for capital. So now they've created this SCP again as a fast track thing for actually revenue procurement for repairs. It's not a capital case to do repairs. Last point is on exports. When you look at the export data submitted by the government at 8,900 crores or something, I looked at all the annual reports of our PSUs and what we put together. उन सबका जोड़ जाड़ के कुछ 800 करोड़ भी नहीं बनता है. 8,100 करोड़ का एक्सपोर्ट किसने किया? तब बनता है ना 8,900. If the DPS and OB have done only 800 crores, then the balance has been done by the private sector, I guess, 8,100 crores. So now here is the situation that the Indian private sector is capable of beating the public sector for exports, but it cannot beat them for Indian defense manufacturing. These are sort of points that I am saying. So basically, the defense DAP is a document which has to be trashed and thrown out of the window. It's a worthless piece of document which is only talks about procurement. It has no end objective of doing force modernization or force in some reasonable time frame. Making 600, 700 pages of procedures is neither here nor there. On a positive note, and on which I can take a fair amount of credit, is the introduction of the leasing chapter, which I had written in 2015 or something. And I'm very happy to see it there because it creates new business opportunities for Indian industry. And my last point is on offsets. On offsets, the radical suggestion I want to make is do away with offsets. It's been a complete bloody mess. There's no point. चुपचाप लिख दो उसमें बाय ग्लोबल ट्राई ग्लोबल जो भी करोगे 30% इंडिजिनस कंटेंट मैन्युफैक्चरिंग में डालें, तब ये आप जाप बंद हो जाएगा. दैट ये सब डीआरडीओ को दे दो, ये टीपीसी को दे दो, इतना मल्टीप्लायर है, ये है वो है, छोड़ दो भैया. उनको बस 30% का इंडिजिनस कंटेंट उनको बना के दीजिए मैन्युफैक्चरिंग, वो खुद ढूंढ लेगा. इंडियन मैन्युफैक्चरिंग, नो ब्लडी मल्टीप्लायर शल्टीप्लायर 1.5 2.3, फॉरगेट इट. 30% इंडिजिनस कंटेंट दिखाई हमें, तो डाउन द लाइन एवरीबडी विल बेनिफिट. Because L&T can't make everything. Below him, there's a huge TRIs chain. He's supporting, I don't know how many thousands, maybe, I don't know, many tens of thousands of MSMEs are supported by companies like L&T and Bharat Forge and all of you. So all this is not required. Dump the offset program out of the window. It has produced zero result for us. It's added some bloody 100 pages of nonsense into this book, and it has done nothing for us. Just say buy global, 30% indigenous content table पे रखिए आप, उसके बाद बात करेंगे. So these are my short comments, but we can go on for it for a long time. And I'm sorry I've said what I have to say, and I've taken permission from Mahajan Saab whether I could speak my mind or whether I have to just say the party line and say what a great DAP this is and what a path breaking this thing is. No such thing is. Thank you.
Nobody.
आपने मुकेश के लिए तो पॉइंट छोड़े ही नहीं.
Mukesh ji,
Commodore Bhagam knows much more about the subject than I know, so I'm sure you'll have many things to add.
Mukesh ji.
Okay, thank you, Nilesh. Ashwini ji, the dignitaries on the round table. On the DAP 2020, I have most of the points, as Tyagi ji is rightly saying, is already covered, which I had noted down, but I'll just try to put up some of points from my view. First and foremost, I find that since I've been involved in this interaction with DG Acquisition Committee, I can see a very high level of openness. Maybe it is the individual himself, because he was finding a lot of opposition from his team, but being the chair, I could see a high level of openness, to the extent at times he said, you please give me the draft, and we found a verbatim draft being included. One of the challenges which JD also mentioned is, and I think I would like Ashwini ji to take a note of that, we have a committed budget which needs to take care of modernization as well as the present geopolitical situation which is emerging. And to top of it, today Pakistan has issued a new map taking even Gujarat as part of his country. So with those kind of geopolitical situation, we need to look at what is the realistic budget that we really need, not only to modernize, but also to take care of what is happening. Committed liability takes away more than 85% of the budget. 15% what is balance left for capital procurement, we are having urgent procurement happening because of on the eastern border, and some of them going through the FMS and the G2G. When we talking about industry, you invest, and what Rajendra said, where are the orders? Where is the money for that order? So this is something which we need to really look at from Ashwini ji, how that can be changed. We had an interaction with the CDS, and he did mention that the domestic defense procurement budget which is there is not something which is being decided. If we buy Rafale, there is no money left for anything else. If we buy the submarine, then nothing left for anything else. So 1 year we can have one item. And if that is the case, then I don't know how we're going to really look at. JD brought out a very valid point. Only today we have forwarded our comments on this draft of August 2020, which has come. Every positive that was agreed to in the March DAP 2020 has been removed. I am surprised who has done that. JD is saying he knows the culprit, but I would like to know that it was a collegiate decision. And how can you go back? In fact, we were asked to give a new list, a table for the terms of payment for ships separately, submarines separately. We took half a day with 20 people sitting around to convince why submarine terms of payment have to be different than ships, which was accepted. And now we find a new term which is coming, which is neither ship nor submarine, but the one which is what there in DPP 2016. So there is something which has drastically gone wrong, and I think we need to see how we can put that. The comments have gone, but if they are in a rush to issue it before the 1st of September, I don't know whether they would have time to really implement those or have an interaction for us to explain that. Ashok brought out something with regard to how this monitoring of the projects can be done and who is accountable. The person has been on the organization has been made in DPP 2020, which is called the PMU, Project Monitoring Unit, and they would be responsible for not just the RFP, but also for the project execution. And at every stage, they would have that whether it is going as per the schedule or not. And the actual, the devil is, as what Rajendra rightly brought out, policies are all very good. It is the implementation. And I think I would request Ashwini ji, if the focus can be given on implementing them, what is being written, at least we will reach somewhere. The next point was on shipbuilding. I think JD has already covered that, so I will not talk about it. One good thing which has happened is a recommendation that has been accepted that by global manufacturing in India, even Indian companies are allowed to participate because of it is on a higher category. And if Indian companies can participate for buy global, why can't they participate for buy global manufacture in India? The DAP, the nomenclature of DPP has been changed because this is not really buying aloo pyaz from the market, which is procurement, but it is acquisition. You need to really map the capability and take a role with regard to what additional capability need to be created. There are some new chapters, as was mentioned, Sujit mentioned about the leasing, definitely has got some advantages. And if you have a short-term requirement, that can really be a good way to save the money. ICT is a new chapter that has come up. And I think that is something which is very, very apt because the way we look at it, the future warfare is going to have a lot of cyber, and we need to prepare those capabilities and a roadmap for that. Unfortunately, this chapter was given very late, so not much comments have been come out for this. A very, very positive thing which JD and I, we've been talking about it for almost a decade now, is to introduce a negative list for imports. And this is, I think, a big positive that has happened. We need to see that how we can make this dynamic list bigger and bigger and keep on adding the products that are in our capability so that we put a ban on import of those. That would really create capability for our indigenous, and Swadeshi would really come up in that way. Another good thing that has happened is, incidentally, after a lot of debate, we've been able to get a concept of basic contract price and kept the taxes and duties out because the whole document was full of confusion on that. IC content, Sujit mentioned, across the board, more than 10% than what was there in DPP 16. But that is also another good thing which has happened. IDDM JD already mentioned. On offsets, I have got a huge discomfort. Actually, offset drives a behavior of the foreign OEM on where you want him to go. It starts from 0.5 and goes up to 4. 3 and 4 are reserved only for DPSUs and DRDO. What are you telling the foreign OEM? You're telling him, please go only to DRDO and DPSUs. We had a huge debate on this, and we said, you're keeping a chapter 3A, which is development of DRDO products by DPSUs and OF. Having that chapter, full chapter on that. DRDO having their own budget. DPSU getting the complete funding. Now offset also you want 3 and 4 multiplier only for DRDO and DPSU. What is there left for the industry? And offset was supposed to create capability where the foreign OEM would be paying for creating those capabilities. That also the highest multiplier is given there. we told them that please make it same for the industry and DRDO DPSU. Let foreign OEM decide which is a better place to invest. That has not been accepted, and this is a huge discomfort which I feel should be taken up. One good thing which has happened is all the active RFP where the bids are not submitted would come under DPP 2020. So a lot of confusion was there, whether it would be 8, 11, 13 or 16. I think all of them will come where we don't submit the bid in PPP 2020. Trial part has been mentioned on retention of the equipment. A lot of positive has come out on that. Another good thing which has happened is less than 200 crore orders would be given only to Indian industry. So there's a big positive for the small and medium industries. FDI, a lot has been spoken, but I still would like to reiterate the definition of Indian industry. And when you make it 74 FDI, what Sujit rightly said, it doesn't matter. It's only percentage of profit, 25% additional profit they can take. But don't let them become eligible for Make in India category. Buy Indian, buy and make Indian, buy IDDM and make category. This should be only for Indian companies and not foreign company with the 74 FDI comes and makes manufacturing over here and then become eligible, because I'm talking to some of the foreign companies. They're all looking for participating in these 5 categories just because they're getting 74% FDI. And now they become an Indian company. They will have the control of all the IPs. They will have the control of all the technologies, and they will take 74% of the profit back. And they also become eligible for all the companies where all the categories where Indian companies are participating. Last point is with regard to the SP. I think it was mentioned about the helicopter. Sujit mentioned SP. If you read the chapter 7, which has not been tempered in DAP 2020, there are first 7 out of the 9 paras of the chapter talks about this category only for private sector. The first program that comes up, you qualify 2 players, one public and one private. Okay, L&T is one of them, but why PSU? And the second program, you have, as what JD mentioned, 2 bids of the HAL have been given. One has nothing against the PSUs, but they have been a strategic partner for 75 years. They are the strategic partner. But now let's give a chance of strategic partner under chapter 7 to only private sector. Lastly, on the export, I would like to request Ashwini ji that there is a huge opportunity. As I said, there is hardly any orders coming to Indian industries. Sujit gave the statistics out of 8,900, 8,100, and JD is fully responsible for some of these coming through the Indian industries. So if we are able to do exports, at least have more and more line of credits to friendly countries to be given. If you can't give it from the defense budget, give it from the other ministries' budget, so that we are able to export the products which we are not able to get orders for in India. I have lots many other points, but I think I will close it at this. Thank you, Anilesh. Thank you, Ashmi.
Thank you, Mukesh ji. Tyagi ji, you want to conclude the discussion before we invite Ashwini ji? Tyagi ji?
Excellent points. And of course, it's also a pleasure to listen on that will be somebody else's job. But in fact, all relevant points from the industry point of view have been raised. And DAP 2020, I think, still there is a scope of lot of improvement. Budgets in any case are needed. Offsets, we are unanimous that we are not really been able to use the offset in the way they should be. Rather, in fact, they are creating more differentials in the industry. So on the whole, good points and good discussions, and I'm sure there will be a lot of inputs for Ashwini ji picking up the government on how these improvements can be done in DAP 2020 documents. And I think we'll listen to Ashwini ji's views now.
Actually, I missed R. Chandrasekhar ji. R. Chandrasekhar ji is former Telecom Secretary, IT Secretary, and was also part of Ministry of Defense. If you want to add few points, Chandrasekhar ji.
Thank you, Nilesh ji, and greetings to everybody. I think I was listening very carefully, because I was in defense production for a brief while I spent most of my time, of course, in IT and telecom. And I have not gone through this whole manual. I've been associated with it from outside while I was in NASSCOM. So to that extent, I have some familiarity with how the industry has been looking at it. But given this very limited knowledge, I would not like to get into very detailed comments, but I just wanted to actually share a couple of thoughts. And pardon me if they are very broad at this point, but I think it does to some extent confirm what some of the speakers have said. First and foremost, if we want the policy to actually be effective, what I heard at least some of the speakers saying, though not in the same words, is that an ounce of implementation is worth a pound of policy. So the real question is about the implementation, and sometimes in the government, and I have been there myself, so we spend a lot of time on perfecting the document and perfecting the file without realizing that it's a means to something outside. So here the question which comes up is what can be done to make sure that we first actually have some good examples of such domestic manufacturing by maybe by just doing it and then deriving the principles and the policy from the actual example rather than the other way around. Because defense procurement, I know for a fact, is an extremely complex process. There are so many different entities and so many different variables which can be brought in that it is extremely difficult for anyone to control it and come to the end objective. So if you start the other way around and say that, okay, which are the entities which can actually help the country to develop its own capacity, and then what do we need to do to actually enable them to do that? How do you form this kind of a partnership? To my mind, the governmental systems and the procurement system in particular is not conducive to building such partnerships because it's all built on accountability and not on trust. And for that, if you want to bring in a completely different paradigm of trust, then you have to be able to select a partner on the basis of certain capability and a certain trust, and then share the objective and give them enough time and resources to actually develop that capability. That is how it is done in countries which have enough confidence in themselves and which have built a capability over a certain number of years, because you're asking for a product which is not already there, which is not already in the market. So that requires active cooperation from the armed forces and those who are procuring it. That's one kernel of thought. And I'll be happy to share some thoughts separately on that. The second is that, we need to play to our strengths. Obviously, IT and technology is one area where we have great strength. And in that area, it is very, very clear that ownership is secondary. Control over the technology is important. And again, that's a point which many of the speakers made on how do you ensure that you actually have the control. And the fact that it is being manufactured in India or the fact that it is being developed in India does not automatically translate into control. So these are two very different parameters, and I think there needs to be clarity on where we want control and where we simply want the economic activity and the jobs to happen in India. For the whole IT sector, IT and telecom, defense requirements are a big driver of technology development. So in fact, a future technology requirement that the defense forces have actually would be a huge driver for the industry. And again, it has to be built on the basis of procuring what we do not have, being able to contract for what we do not have on the basis of a certain level of trust, a certain level of competition, and a certain time span. And there are ways of doing this which have been done all over the world, but they are different from the traditional procurement norms that we have. So again, that is something which perhaps needs to be looked at, particularly in the context in which some speakers mentioned that the whole process that has been laid out has become extremely complex, and therefore the final outcome remains uncertain. And particularly if one looks back at the previous avatars or the previous versions, and then says to what extent were they successful, how many actual project allotments were there, then that will, I think, bring things out clearly. Also, last point I want to make is that while looking at this procurement from the industry perspective, I think what was very clear was that while there's a lot of capability within the industry here in India, the position where you try to compare existing industry capability with existing PSU capability in defense is a very unequal and an unfair kind of comparison, because PSUs have been in the business of actually manufacturing and production for defense right from their birth, whereas the industry is only now getting into it. So I think, and the second related point is that when the PSUs themselves are made in charge of procurement from the private sector, then most of the time what happens is that some minor, segments are given to the industry, and not really, oriented towards building that capability within the private sector. So if you want to build that capability and build that partnership, then the approach of a strategic partner, the approach of reposing some trust and building a model which is quite different from the current procurement processes, with a lot of the nitty-gritty caught in the kind of 800-page detail that we are seeing, will have to be jettisoned. So I think the question is, can we create 3 or 4 such examples with 3 or 4 reputed names within the country? All of us know that they are there, and then build, work backwards to build a procurement process which is transparent based on those examples, rather than try to do it the other way around. These are just some high-level thoughts, but I think we should have the confidence as a country that we are capable of producing technologies which have not yet been created anywhere else, provided we are clear of the requirements and we are able to get the industry to work on board. I think the capacity is very much there, and that's what we need to focus on building. So I'll leave it at that, but I'll be happy to share any further thoughts or details separately on this. Thank you. Thanks for the opportunity, Anilesh ji, and thank you, Ashwini ji, for putting this together, because I think from the ICT sector's point of view, defense is the area where we can build a capability in the country for technology development, for product development, which is currently one of our weakest areas in IT, even though we are otherwise regarded as quite strong in services and in BPM. Thank you.
Thank you, Chandrasekhar ji. Thank you. Now let's bring in Dr. Ashwini Mahajan. He is National Co-Convener of Swadeshi Jagan Manch, and probably one of the strongest voices to push the interests of indigenous players. Ashwini ji, please unmute yourself and switch on your mic. And switch on your video as well.
Thank you, Nilesh ji. In fact, it was a very enlightening experience to have heard on this important issue of DAP 2020, proposed one. It has always been a pleasure listening to Patil ji, Mukesh ji, Ashok ji, and Chandrasekhar ji. I had the advantage of listening to Ravi ji and Rajendra Bhatia ji and others. So, and of course, Dr. R.K. Tyagi has always been a fatherly figure for all of us on different issues. And what I would like to share with you is that Swadeshi Jagat Manch and for that matter myself, we could understand the problems and issues of the Indian defense sector when we started organizing the Indian defense industry. And I remember the very first discussion which we made was on 2016 defense procurement policy based on a committee's recommendation. And of course, we have we are a very late entrant in the defense sector. Though our capabilities were very much there, but the private sector could not really show its capabilities in the best possible way because of the policies of the earlier governments. And it is very important for us to indigenize defense production. And what we need to understand from my point of view, I would like to say that what is good for the country as a whole, for the economy as a whole, is that we have more and more of defense equipments produced in our country. There may be different points of views on the FDI in defense, about as the participants have rightly said, that there should be different categories for the FDI. They can't be the same FDI limit for all sorts of categories, all segments of defense production. We also understand that industry has a lot of capabilities for exports, and we have time and again shown our capabilities. In the last meeting with the then Defense Minister, Mrs. Nirmala Sitharaman, this point was raised with her, that we need to, the government needs to help the industry to increase exports. And when this fact comes into mind, that when even our government is not purchasing, how can we export? Then I remember Mrs. Nirmala Sitharaman said that we are trying to help the industry to procure and procure orders and supply, and with the certification from the government that this is something which is procurable for the country's armed requirements, but the government is unable to purchase, but they are. So what I want to say is that we need to first set the priorities right, that we need to indigenize more and more. We need to export more and more. And for that, we need the procedures, policies for acquisitions of the defense requirement, which are conducive to all our objectives set forth. I noted from what was told that the DAP which has come is not very encouraging for the industry, and to some extent it is old wine the new bottle. And also since the voluminous document which has been brought out obviously would create more confusions than clarity, and we need to make suggestions to the government that what can be done in this case. One good thing about which has been brought out in this discussion is that the negative list of imports is there, and we need to constantly extend this list. So this is a very important point. As an activist of Swadeshi Jagran Manch, we had been fighting for Buy Indian on the lines of Buy American, and we were successful when in General Financial Rules 153(3) was introduced, and there has been improvements in the defense acquisition policies over the years, but the requirements of the industry are much more than that. I think this can come with the with more and more discussions with the government. But one thing I have noticed is that there is a conflict of interest in the whole process, and that has to be sorted out, and that has to be the defense acquisition and defense production as institutions or as the departments must be separated. Defense production secretary should not be looking at the defense acquisition, because there is a conflict of interest in this case. And we need to have more and more conducive policy for procurement, for encouragement, for the private sector also. But as I've already mentioned, that we are a late entrant. Private sector is a late entrant, as respected Chandrasekhar ji has also pointed out, that the public sector has been there for decades, since the independence, but private sector is relatively new in this area, but they have done dramatically well. I remember in one of the interactions with the late finance minister Arun Jaitley ji, he had very high regards for Indian defense industry, and he made some comments about some giving some examples. Especially he gave the example of L&T that we should be proud of, that L&T is a company which has got even the nuclear capabilities. So I think in the government circles, this realization is there, But I do find in other cases, I'm not talking of defense because I don't have much knowledge about how this really ministry works. But in case of other departments, in finance, in commerce, in others, I always realize that bureaucracy is a big problem everywhere. And the decisions made by bureaucracy are mostly not in the best interest of the country. I have seen in case of the international trade agreements, commerce, since it's a closed door meeting, so I can say that. In case of finance, I find huge problem in their decision making. So we need to have more and more say of the industry in policy making. And yes, today's meeting will help us understanding the same. And I will request all respected speakers to put whatever they have said in writing, so that we are able to, to suggest, make suggestions based on the recommendations of the industry. I agree with this that time is too short. We need more time for giving our suggestions on this, and for that I will personally call the Honorable Minister for seeking more time on this issue, and I am hopeful that more time will be given. Maybe if not 31st of August, maybe up to 20th of August, if the time is given, I think we should be able to formulate our suggestions. So thank you so much for really making me speak on this issue. And I hope with the present, the discussions today, what we have discussed today, I again would concede that I don't know much about the defense procedures, acquisition procedures, and so on. But definitely with your guidance, and especially under the guidance of our respected R.K. Tyagi ji, we should be able to get the best deal from the government. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Ashwini ji. Thanks for your
thank you, sir. Great
words. So with this, we conclude this discussion. We will be preparing a small note which will be shared with Ashwini ji as well as with the Ministry of Defense. Once this document is ready, so I will request CIU to circulate amongst those present in today's meeting, so that if they want to give their afterthoughts, they can share that. Or in fact, if you have some afterthoughts, maybe in 2 or 3 days, you can write an email to, I'll send you one email ID. You can send it across at that email ID as well. So thank you very much. Thanks for giving us your time. Thanks.
Thank you, Ashwini ji. Thank you, Tyagi ji.
Thank you, Namaskar.
Bye-bye.
Thank you so much.
Thank you, Patil ji.
Namaskar, sir. Thank you very much. Green to all the esteemed speakers.
Thank you.
Last to Jai Shri Ram, sir.
Jai Shri Ram. I thought Jai Shri Ram, sir.
Jai Shri Ram.
बिल्कुल होना चाहिए
सर, वो भी LNT बना रहा है सर आपके लिए.
बिल्कुल.
This is double Jai Shri Ram.
We are proud of L&T.
अश्वनी जी, अगर न्यूक्लियर सबमरीन बना सकते हैं तो बाकी सब चीज बना ही सकते हैं. तकलीफ ये है सरकार देना नहीं चाहती हमें.
ये डायलॉग मैंने एक्चुअल जो उनके साथ हुआ वो बताया आपको.
No, incidentally, I know every minister who's gone to these places